Hey, congratulations on being in this new series, Monster, the Ed Gein Story.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gig.
You know what? These type of people love watching these things, and you get to play in such an iconic role in this series. But first of all, tell us what drew you in that you wanted to be part of this project.
Yeah, great question. Well, first of all, a lot of people love true crime. I fall on the other side. I love horror. I love horror movies. I love scary movies. I love haunted houses and being scared. And you cannot grow up in America and go to a haunted house or watch a scary movie and not be familiar with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So when the audition came to me, it was just like any audition. It had information about the role. It had said that it was not just for Leatherface, but the original actor who played Leatherface, Gunnar Hansen. And I thought, oh, this is wild. This is amazing. So they're going to include the original actor, talk about the original movie, and then have an actor actually recreating the scenes. I have got to be a part of this. So that's sort of how I auditioned, and was lucky enough to have won the role.
It is amazing about this Texas Chainsaw Massacre, isn't it? It's been, my gosh, 51 years
Yeah, it's
since that movie came.
wild. Yes, absolutely. The original Toby Hooper film. And yeah, I mean it is still to this day you'll hear horror aficionados and people that love scary movies discuss how there wasn't anything as shocking. There still hasn't been. A lot of people would say that it was provocative, it was shocking, it was terrifying. It wasn't just scary. No one had seen anything like it.
Now, how much did you know that Ed Gein was actually tied to to this horror film that was made back in the 1970s?
Yeah, I will say my personal knowledge of Ed Gein was sort of combined with my pop culture literacy, which was knowing that some of the horror films that I loved, Psycho, Texas Chainsaw, and Silence of the Lambs, were inspired by allegations against and some crimes committed by Ed Gein. My grandparents also grew up in Wisconsin, and so these
Oh,
sorts of I had a lot of the Midwest kind of boogeyman stories, and there were stories that I heard as a kid, not quite to the extent that Toby Hooper in the show has been traumatized by these stories, but I heard enough stories to be aware that the Plainsfield Ghoul, or this the first serial killer, existed somewhere in the Midwest, and somehow that was the most terrifying thing, like a very normal place, and these horrible crimes were happening.
now how did you prepare to play the late Gunner for these roles? Did you basically had to rewatch the movie, look at some documentaries to get his mannerism down? I mean, how did you pull it off?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I'm going to just mention, so there was a documentary that came out at the same time we were filming called Dinner with Leatherface. For anyone who's interested in that, I was not affiliated with this at all. I found this, it came out around the time that I was cast in the role, and I was thrilled because the team had put together some incredible just behind the scenes and B-roll of Gunner and his life. I also read his book, Chainsaw Confidential, and a bunch of other biographies about the making of the movie to help me piece those things together. And then, yeah, the sacred text was the original film. In between, chainsaw running and chopping people up, we would go back to the movie. We would watch the movie relentlessly, and it was playing in my trailer. I had a custom playlist with Gene Autry music that would help me get in the part. But yeah, mostly I felt like the task was, again, not just Leatherface, but paying tribute to Gunner. And so learning about him, he was a poet, kind of fell into the role. The experience that they had couldn't have been more different than the experience we had working for Ryan Murphy Productions. It was a dream. Everyone was lovely. It was so much fun. But the original TCM cast back in the 70s, it was hot. The days were long. People were tired. And Gunner was a big guy like me. In fact, we are, and this is not apocryphal, the same height and almost down to the pound the same weight. And so being able to play the character was a dream, but it kind of felt sort of meant to be in that I was able to fill the costume and the mask to the proportion that Gunnar was. The mask was designed by our mask was designed by Noah Rivers, and I think it does the heavy lifting, and I got to do the fun part, which was screaming and wielding the chainsaw and chasing teenagers. So
It is such a delight for that. But there was something that you just mentioned is the Gein Autry music. Why Gein Autry?
Nothing scarier than Do Not Fear. I think I was trying to think of what would the music be that Leatherface, or as some fans know him as Bubba, what is the music that this childlike character would listen to? And so, deep in the heart of Texas and a couple of these other like old timey sort of 1940s, 1950s, because the family generation of this family, later on known as the Sawyer family, but in other versions, the Savage family, the cook, the hitchhiker, Leatherface, they're all a family. Grandma and grandpa are there, barely hanging on. Grandpa's barely hanging on, but it's multi-generational. So I was raised by my grandparents, and I listened to a lot of Perry Como, a lot of Gein Autry music, and I just thought, okay, this would sort of track. Like Leatherface is not going to have, he doesn't wear new clothes. They have, if they owned music or a radio, it would be an old phonograph. And what are the types of what type of music would this family isolated in Texas in the 70s have access to? And I just sort of made the decision that it would be 40s country music, sort of folky kind of bluegrass music.
Well, it is surely fitting. Everyone has their process. That's for
Absolutely. Yeah, the other option was killing people, and so I just thought music was better.
yeah, that probably would be better. Now, Brock, you get to don this mask. I'm not. Can you reveal like how many masks they actually create? Because, and I also want to say that it's probably not the same type of texture that they used in the original film.
Yeah, so Noah Rivers recreated the Bob Burns masks. In the film, there's three masks. In the show, we only show and created two masks. The killing mask, which is the standard Leatherface mask, this is actually the one from the audition that I used. I have it here. And the Pretty Woman mask, which is the one that goes with the suit coat. And so both of those, I believe we only have one of each. And so that was also one of the added fun parts is you're running through the dark in the woods with the chainsaw with the mask. So don't fall. And that's all I kept thinking. And thank God I didn't. I think I stumbled once and I was smart enough to take the mask off because I'm replaceable, but that mask was not. Yeah, and so the mask was actually built and created before I was cast, and that was another kind of happy accident. Was the way the mask sat on my face was very similar because we have similar face shapes, Gunnar and I, and it worked out great.
Now, on recreating these scenes, tell us about wielding the infamous chainsaw. What prop did they actually use? Is it like the Universal Horror Nights where they remove the the blades itself and it just
Take the
makes
teeth
noise,
off.
or I mean, what was it, heavy and bulky? I mean, I can't imagine how much fun you actually have, or how difficult it was if it was a real chainsaw.
So there were real chainsaws, and there were alternate chainsaws for any running. Anytime there was a stationary scene, or there was a heavier real chainsaw without teeth. And the ones that I primarily used because I was running in motion with limited peripheral vision, our production designer, one of the production designers, Cameron, incredible attention to detail. He worked so hard on this to make it look. I mean, it just looks like ripped right out of the movie. But it is a replica, and I wouldn't say like one of there's I can't even tell when I'm watching which chainsaw I'm using at any given time because to me they look so identical. And we had a great team, again, Cameron, John, and VFX to make sure that the teeth are there and moving and all that stuff is there. Yeah, and it is funny. It's funny you mentioned Halloween Horror Nights because my first time playing Leatherface many years ago was at Halloween Horror Nights in one of the scare mazes, um, with the big chainsaw. And the issue with that, practicality, um, it may not have teeth on it, but it's still very loud. It's gas fumes. It's heavy. Your arm gets tired. It smells. So I was very thankful to not need to operate a gas chainsaw the entire time, but I was ready if I needed to.
We can't imagine what Gunner actually had to do 50 years ago. I mean, it's I
Thank
think
God for unions,
yeah,
and
right.
thank God for producers like Ryan and Ian who put the actors first, because researching the making of this movie really made me grateful to be an actor now with all the protections and limitations. And also just respect for each other, which is we're doing this together. This isn't just one person's vision. The show obviously was very, very, very much Ian Brennan's vision. He wrote the show, and he was there on set with us, which was really special. Max Winkler was there directing on some other days. So it was really cool to be there with one of the essentially the showrunner, doing these scenes, because you felt very collaborative. We were working very closely with each other to make sure that he was getting what he needed and that we were also paying homage to the original film as close as possible.
Now, I know you're such a you have such a long career as a voice actor doing hundreds of different type of voices. But in this case, you have to replicate that laugh. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I got to go back to Gunnar on this. This was not my discovery. Gunnar did some studying back in the 70s. Obviously, the entire series that I'm a part of really has a heavy conversation piece about mental health and neurodivergence and society, and the way society views people who might have these different considerations. At the time that the original Texas Chainsaw came out, Gunnar actually went and studied some nonverbal individuals that had severe autism impacts, and heard one or two of these individuals get frustrated and make this sort of like howl. And the best way I can sort of explain it, having been in the character and studied the way Gunnar put the character together, Leatherface is nonverbal. He's grown up on a farm. So throughout the movie, even though we did segments, we still had to honor where we were in the film. Throughout the movie, he's mimicking farm animals. So he's doing bah, 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 and he's doing cow sounds and pig sounds. So the Leatherface battle cry, as my friend Chris calls it, is sort of a combination of a pig squeal, like a kind of like that, which is an inhale, and almost like a scream of fear, like or frustration, like that sort of thing. So when you combine those two, it creates this almost like it's kind of a shriek. It is sort of a laugh. It is open throat, like it does sort of have that round sound, but it really comes from a place of fear. And from Leatherface's perspective, family dinner was about to happen, and there's all these intruders here. It's not going to plan whatsoever. So there's some frustration, and past the Leatherface's ability to comprehend speech. He gets to the point where the arms are up, and the last thing he can do is just run and chase and try to fix it. And so there is a lot of mentally for that character. There's a lot of I don't want to get in trouble. I got to stop this. I got to fix this. I got to do this. So there, and I think that is very much in the DNA of the show as well, which is Leatherface has these different masks, just like Ed Gein has these different masks and sides of himself, because in Ed Gein's case, the abuse from his mother and the relationship with his mother had left him so fragmented. Likewise, in the fictional version of Leatherface's upbringing, there was no figurehead, there was no mother, there was no, I mean, he had to play all these different roles. So he literally needed to wear a different face. instead of like wearing different hats, he would wear different masks. Um, and I think that was something that I found not comical. I thought it was very kind of poignant, which was in an American family dynamic, so much is put on the kids. We'll go all the way back to the 40s, even now. Kids are often trying to figure out, who do I need to be? Who do I need to be for my parents? Who do I need to be for my siblings? So it all comes back to Leatherface trying to fill multiple roles in the family, and essentially so that he can feel safe. It's all about his safety, keeping others safe in his family. Um, and then obviously, if you're outside of that circle, it is not very safe for you. So
Very, very true. Now there is a specific scene. I'm not a Texas Chainsaw expert or anything like that, but I want to ask about the makeup scene
oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
that you got to participate. Tell us about what's it like doing that scene as you're sitting there, as they apply the makeup.
Yeah, so that particular scene in the tail end of episode 4 is really Will Brill, who plays Toby Hooper's scene. And in my opinion, and he's really breaking down for the audience, here's what you're about to see. Um, so as the actor, where I'm sitting there, that was actually my audition scene. My audition scene was sitting in a makeup chair for 2 minutes while somebody read Toby Hooper's monologue. Um, and the scene ends with him saying, after he goes through again, back to the masks, right? Ed Gein would wear this mask for this and this mask for that and that. And very quickly, Toby Hooper's describing the horrible things that Ed Gein has done and the need of the masks and the phases of the masks. And then goes to Gunnar in the scene. So what does that make you? What does that make you? And Gunnar's processing all of this emotion. The mask is on, and I just kept going back to Gunnar, the actor, in a hot trailer, just wanted to get out there and get this done. So I love process as an actor. I love process. I love research. I think my job there was just listening. And as this monologue, the director who's keeping me in a hot trailer is continuing on, the actor's response is, I don't know, what do you want from me? And so that is that, think of the worst job you've had under bad circumstances. Again, not the reality I was experiencing, but trying to pay homage to Gunnar. It was an extremely tense relationship between the two of them as well, allegedly. So again, that was the audition scene. So I had time to, pun intended, chew on that monologue and kind of know where I was, mentally. But most of my performance in that scene is under the mask with the prosthetic teeth, and you just have my eyes. And so, as a voice actor, I'm very used to not having access to my full body. It's most of my job is expressing with just one aspect of my instrument. So it was a really cool challenge. And on top of that, that scene, Leatherface in the film, back to what we were talking about earlier, being sort of nonverbal, doesn't speak. So in character, in his frustration, I got to create what Leatherface's actual speaking voice would sound like, and try to feed that over the line that I respond to Toby Hooper with. So that was, as a voice actor, that was like just right up my alley. I love that. I love that challenge.
I was going to ask you about that because, being a voice actor, you're literally faceless in so many ways because you rely upon your voice. And in this film or in this series, you wear a mask, but we do have a glimpse of you
Right.
in the series itself. So how much do you relish these opportunities when it does actually come by?
To be on camera,
Yes.
I um I love creating and I love acting, and the answer may be non-scandalous, but I look at voiceover and on camera as extensions of the same craft. Any given day as a voice actor, I'm asked to create sounds for animals and creatures that don't exist, or to voice match celebrities who either can't return to the project or aren't around anymore. And so I have a lot of, um, I just have a lot of love for the process of making stuff with other people. So I will say one thing about on camera that I really enjoy is so much of voiceover is isolated, not just in principle of like you're in a booth, but the nature of soundproofing, you can't have a lot of people around. But a film set or a movie set or a TV set, I mean, there are hundreds of people. And in this case, I was on set with people that were fans of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or fans of horror. And so I'm having conversations in between takes with, cast and crew and everybody, and it just was life-giving. So that experience is something that, every time I get to be on a set with other like-minded artists, I'm excited. But as far as the craft of acting, it's all the same, on camera or behind the mic for me.
Well said. Well, I know you have a line of people who love to talk to you next, but so I'm going to wrap it up with one last question
Sure, sure.
for you. It's been 51 years since Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's been decades since the Ed Gein. What does that say about our society today that we still love these serial killers or these horror films to this moment?
Yeah, well, I think it speaks to two things. I think Monster Season 3, the Ed Gein story, would suggest this, which is the illness or the sickness or whatever that is, this obsession that we have with true crime and horror and trauma is us as the audience's job to examine where that comes from, rather than maybe putting the blame on the filmmakers and labeling them as sort of provoking that. There's an audience for it, or else these movies wouldn't be made. Horror is a genre that thrives, and that wouldn't be the case if people didn't see them. So I think that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, I think monster movies, and as an actor, yes, on camera as Leatherface, but I do a lot of monsters and creatures in my other work in voiceover. And anytime, what I love about monsters is they're the other. And so, as someone who identifies as, I identify as LGBTQ plus, I identify as autistic and neurodivergent. So, in my own life, I have things that make me feel other because society's been constructed in such a rigid way. And I think the horror community is really made up of millions of folks who feel othered, in their own way. And I think that's really, to me, also the mental health aspect, which the Ed Gein show really highlights, is maybe the way society mishandles and mistreats folks who need help. And that is not, whitewashing over the crimes or any of those things, but I am talking about like specifically the way we as a society still handle people, people who have mental illness or even neurodivergent people who might think differently. And so I think the horror community has really opened its doors to people that have felt neglected or left behind by society. And what I love about horror is when you realize that there are more people in the tower with Dr. Frankenstein waiting for the lightning to hit than the angry mob down below.
Mm.
It's really kind of empowering. And so I feel very fortunate to be able to have played a small part in keeping a very iconic horror character alive, paying homage to Gunnar Hansen in a time where everyone is sort of obsessed with IP, but we forget to give tribute to the artists who made the roles. So it's really special to me, in the middle of this conversation of AI and all of this stuff, that Ryan Murphy Productions has put so much thought into including Toby Hooper's story and Gunnar Hansen's story, and to be entrusted with that. And already, since the show's come out, I've gotten to speak with so many fans of horror in general, but also Texas Chainsaw Massacre fans. And they have so much love for this character, and it just feels, I feel so grateful to have been able to pick up the chainsaw even for a little bit.
You certainly did that well, and it was frightening. So, Brock, thank you very much for carrying this
Thank you.
conversation with us for Monster, the Ed Gein story, as everyone could now check it out on Netflix. So, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.